Okay, hi there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of making a patch app. So the workflow that if you wanted to make a patch app you would follow to make something and get it to the point where we at Data2Insight can approve it to be added to the Patch App Store. So the first thing you want to do is you want to navigate to this web page, which is the Data2Insight GitHub page. Now, to be able to go forward and make a patch app, you will have to have been added to the Data2Insight GitHub page by me or someone else at Data2Insight, and that's just because we have some security on the GitHub so that people from outside can't start making changes to the apps or to any of the other programs we make. So once you've been added, and that's simple, just make a GitHub account. GitHub will guide you through that, and then email me the name of your GitHub account and I will add you to the patch to our GitHub so you can start making changes. So once you're here, you want to head to this link here, which is the patch app. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in this page a little bit so it's easier to see. Head here to the patch repository. It won't always be in that order. The order of those is the order of when they were last updated by other people. So somewhere though on that list will be the patch app. What you can see here is essentially the file structure of all the code used for the patch app. And before you can make any changes, what you need to do, and this is very important, this is the most important step, you need to make sure that you're not working in this thing called main. So the way it works is that GitHub is a kind of version control, and this allows you to make changes to all of the code in collaboratively with lots of people doing it, in a way that if you make a mistake or you want to go back and revert something later or you want to test things, you can do it without affecting the main code. And actually the patch app and the main website is built from this thing called main. It's called a branch, and essentially the way it works is that there's a main branch like the trunk of a tree, and that is what the website and the apps are built from. And if you want to make changes to that, you build them in other branches that branch off from the main trunk of the tree, and they won't affect the main code and the main apps. So you can build them and test them safely in a way that won't affect the main apps and code. And then when you're ready to get that added and you think everything's right, you will make a request that someone like me or someone else at Data2Insight can review the code, make sure it works, and then add it to the main branch and get it working. So we will have to go a little bit into that kind of version control, branch management stuff, because that is an important part of this workflow. So the first thing you'll do, and we're going to be using the graphical user interface here for GitHub and version control rather than the command line, just because it's a bit easier for beginners. You'll go to this thing that says main, and you'll click the drop down, and you'll see there are branches. These are places where other people are making changes that will eventually be added to the main code, but in their safe environments. And we are going to make an app. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in what we want our branch to be called, and we want to call it something that makes sense to other people who are going to be coding here, so they know what your branch does, and when you eventually add it to the main code, it's clear from reading the name of the branch what the code inside that branch is meant to do. So we're going to start off by calling it app, because we're going to be adding a patch app. We're going to do a slash, and then we're going to name the branch what we think the app is going to be. So I'm going to call this example app. I'm going to spell it right though. And you see here there's a button I can click to create the branch example app. Now if you notice, it's app / example - app. We can't use underscores here, we do have to use dashes, and I can click here. If you don't see this create branch, your branch name, from main, that will probably be because you've not been given read and write permissions on this GitHub page, so do email me or someone else at Data2Insight about resolving that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this new branch in this repository. It will take me to it. You'll see now, rather than being in main, I'm in app / example app. I can switch back to main, and whichever one of these I'm in is the place that I will be making these changes. So let's go to example app. And all of the code from main at the time I made this app is in here. So I can still work as if I was in the main branch with all the rest of the apps, but any changes I make will only be made to this branch. So the next bit of the workflow is starting to do our development. Well, GitHub and the way Patch is made has this really nice thing where if we go to the github.dev environment, and we do that simply by changing .com to .dev, we have a browser-based version of VS Code. Now, the browser-based version of VS Code doesn't actually give us the capability of running code. It doesn't have Python installed in it. But there's a little workaround for that, which is really nice because of the next step. So the first thing we're going to do, once we've read the README and we're sure that we understand how the Patch app works, is we go to extensions, and we're going to search for an extension called SFST Lite here. So SFST Lite. So I've searched in the search bar, and I'm going to install this. This is something that Social Finance built for us using another already existing open source package called Streamlit Lite that is going to allow us to build and test apps entirely in this github.dev environment using Pyodide. And the really important thing about that is that because it's entirely in the browser using Pyodide, we can actually build and test these apps using data from our local authorities and councils that we can't put on servers, because nothing leaves to a server, everything is done in this environment. But the important thing here is that what we've done is we've added to this github.dev environment the Social Finance Streamlit Lite package. So, a step that's going to be really useful for us is we're going to go to this burger button here in the top left, and we go to File, and we're going to make sure that autosave is clicked on. What that means is every single time we make a change to the code, it saves it to this github.dev environment, and then that means that when we want to test our app, it will test it based on the last changes you've made. If you don't do that, you'll have to manually save the code every single time you want to test the app, and that just kind of unsettles the workflow a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to this button here, which looks like what does it look like? It looks like a new page or a new file button, but it's actually the File Explorer, and we'll see there's a few bits of our directory here. So there's apps, and that's the folder we want to look for. And all of these apps are numbered. The best thing to do at this point when you're making an app is just go to the next number. Now, someone might be making an app at the same time as you in another branch with another number. Don't worry about that. Whoever is reviewing the requests to add apps will have the ability to change the numbers of these so that it all works. But what we're going to do is we're going to click on the drop down to go to the apps folder, and we're going to make our new app. First of all, to make our new app, we need to make a folder for it. So let's click new folder. I'm going to call it 010, and we're going to call it _demo. I'm aware there's another demo app already, but don't worry, I'm actually not going to add this to the main code, it's going to be deleted. But inside this demo app, I need to do two things. I need to make a new file called app.py, and this is where we're going to code the Python for our app. I need to add another file after that, well, .py, I need to hit enter so it actually makes that. I'm going to add another file called, I'm going to spell it right, called requirements.txt. What requirements.txt is going to do is it's going to be the file where any packages that we would need to install to run our code are held. And actually, just for this example, so that it makes sense, let's add in Plotly. So Plotly is not included as part of the standard Python distribution, so if in my main app I wanted to have Plotly running, as well as importing it, as I normally would in Python, I have to make sure it's installed when we build the application. So let's go to app.py. At the moment, we've got a blank page. and there's no app. We need to start coding our Python. What I'll do is I'll make something very, very simple here, using the documentation as a reference so you can see the process that you would go through to make an app. If you haven't done much Python before, it's worth contacting Data2Insight about the free Python lessons we have, and also looking at the other video I will put up soon, which is a more in-depth video on making a patch app. If you have done a good bit of Python before, you're probably okay to just start using the documentation for Streamlit, which is what we use to build these apps, and your general Python knowledge. But let's do something simple. So first of all, let's import Streamlit as st. So Streamlit is the thing that builds the apps that the patch tool runs on, and st is just the abbreviation we use when we call it. Let's also, because I added it to the requirements, even though we're not going to be using it here, let's import plotly.express as px, which is what you would standardly import Plotly Express as, and just for fun, let's import pandas as pd. So at the moment this looks very much like a normal Python file, and actually it will largely be a normal Python file, but there are some changes. So rather than writing as you would normally, you need to make sure that when you want to have something appear in your app, you're using the Streamlit API to do that. So there are some, that shouldn't be pandas, that should be PD. So there are some things we need to do, and if you're comfortable with Python, you know to do things like that. You look at the docs. So let's have a look at these docs. They're available at docs.streamlit.io/library/API reference. I would just go to Google and search Streamlit API or Streamlit docs. So one of the first things is that you don't print. Print won't show things on the app like it would if in the terminal if you were using Python normally. We use Streamlit.write, which is not here. It's in write. We use Streamlit.write, which will write something on the app. There's also another one, Streamlit.title. So let's do something like this. st.title, and then I'm going to pass it a string with our title, and this is a demo. And then I'm going to do st.write, a demo of the workflow. There we go. And what I'm going to do then, imagine I had now finished building my app. I would go to this button here, this is the patch tool button, and I'm going to launch ST-Lite Preview. What this does is using the code for the app, which does have to be your highlighted tab when you press this button, it will start building the app. Now, it doesn't always work on the first go, but it pretty much always works on the second go. So if it doesn't load out straight away, just click Launch ST-Lite Preview, and here we go. Just as if you were using a patch app, it loads Pyodide, it mounts the files, it installs Streamlit and its dependencies, and it should build an app which has a title saying this is a demo, and under it, as words rather than the title, it says a demo of the patch workflow. It does sometimes take a little while to install, but that's the nature of using Python. Here we go. This is a demo of the patch workflow. So your workflow from this point, once you've got something going, is you'll start making changes to this code, and you will then test it by pressing rerun, and let's give that a go actually. So let's add something interesting from the API. Let's go to an input widget, and let's go to text input. So if you're used to docs, you'll understand how this works. It tells you the method and then the arguments you can pass it, and we're going to do st.text input, and I'm going to give it a label, which is what will appear in the text input box, and I'll say add your name, and I'm going to give that, assign that to the variable user name equals st text input. And then I'm going to do st.write. I'm going to start an f string, and it's going to say your name is, and then user name. So let's rerun this. Add your name. At the moment it says your name is, it doesn't say anything. My name is Will. Let's hit enter. It will rerun the app, and it updates with my name as well. Really nice. So we've essentially made our first interactive app there. It might not be the most useful thing, but you kind of understand the workflow. So the key step now is that we need to know, once we've built our app, how we get this added to the Patch app to be used by other people. So you've made this in your branch, and that's important. You must make this in a separate branch, not on main. You'll then go to here, which is the source control button, and you'll say 2 because we've made changes to 2 different files. We can click on these to see what the changes are. So if I click here, it will show in green the things I've added, it will show red things I've removed, and it will show the original here. Requirements.txt I've added, and you can see all I've done is add Plotly. When we're sure that we've clicked on these and gone through and made sure they're the changes that we want, and we've tested our app a few times, what we can do is you can press the plus button, and that says I want to add these changes to this branch so that later I can add this branch to the main branch so that it runs with the apps. Now, as standard, we should have a message that explains what the changes in each commit. The commit is like the save to the branch does. So I'm going to say allows user to write name on app. And it's good practice to, every time you make a change that allows a user to do something different, or a relatively significant change, well, not significant, but a change that makes something different happen, you will do that as a separate commit. Because of the way the source control works, every single commit you make is like a save point that you can go back to. So it's really good to have lots of save points so that if you mess up later or you want to revert to another point, you don't lose too much progress because you've only made one commit the whole time. So let's commit and push. When you've made your app, or you've made a change to your app, you commit and push. When your whole app is done, and you've finished all of your commits, and everything's ready, what you'll do is you'll go to, instead of .dev, you go to .com, and you will see either here, compare and pull request, which allows you to make a request to me or someone at Data Insight, to Insight, that you want to add your code to the main, or if that's not there because you've not done it recently, you can click this and it'll take you to the same place that will allow you to make a pull request. But let's just make a request to add this to the main set of apps. So what are we going to do? Our title is going to be the title of the app, which is demo app. The comment will be something that explains what it does. So this is a demo app. It allows users to write their names. And you will create a pull request. What then happens is I will get an email and a notification telling me that you've tried to add your app to the to Patch, and I will review the code to make sure that it works. I will test it with a few different things. I might ask you some questions about it. I will go to this files changed thing, and I can see all the things you've added and taken away, and I will do a review. I will likely leave a comment saying what things need to be changed, what things need to be improved, what things are good, and I might comment on individual lines saying this should be like that, this is good, I would rather you worked on this a bit differently, or there's a bug here or something. And based on the review, I can either comment, I can specifically request changes, or I can approve it for adding. When it's approved for adding, I will then myself have to go through some final extra steps to make sure that it actually gets onto the app. So what we're doing is we're getting you guys to code the apps, There are some extra steps that we are doing ourselves to actually get the apps onto the App Store front page once we know everything works. But your workflow essentially finishes once you have made this pull request, I've reviewed it, you've responded to the reviews and made the changes I've asked for. I will then merge it, make the changes to make sure it comes through as an app, and then it will be on the App Store and you'll be good to go. So thanks very much, and do expect later date videos on how to code a patch app, and the process you would go through actually coding a useful app, so how to make it work, and also a demo on using a patch app as just a user. Thanks very much.